Guys, welcome to Motoroids. My name is Amit, and as you know, this is the new Citroen C3 Aircross. And as you can see, the face is very familiar, which is obviously a very good thing because it looks very smart, very tall bonnet, and this Citroen logo looks very nice. You have a lot of piano black used here. So what is this car is something that you need to know first. And in terms of size, this car would be somewhere around the Creta Seltos Duo, but probably not as expensive. And as you would know, there is space for a car in that segment because cars are getting very expensive, and I personally think that this car will slot somewhere between the sub 4 meter SUVs and the more expensive cars which are 4.3 meters. So in terms of size, this car is about 4.3 meters only, which makes it bigger than the Venues and the Sonnets of the world. So it's a spacious car, and as I was mentioning, it has a very nice, wide, broad, proper SUV stance. And honestly speaking, I like what I see. When I saw this car for the first time, I really loved it. It has a very nice stance, and of the cars that we have in the segment right now, I think this is one of my favorites in terms of the way it looks. Now, while it looks nice, it's French, it's Citroen, but there is obviously some cost cutting, and which is a good thing because you would probably be able to own it at a lesser price than the other cars in the segment. So there are telltale signs. You obviously have this LED DRL, which you have seen on the Citroen C3 as well. And you don't have any LED proper lighting. You have halogen light here. As you can see, you don't have a 360-degree camera, nor do you have any parking sensors, but you do have fog lamps, which is a good thing. And generally, I like the way this looks, quite smart. This blue color here, and there is a white there. And these are the two colors that have been shown here, and both the cars have a contrasting roof, which is fantastic. Now, if you look at the engine, now this thing earlier was also giving a bit of a trouble. This is the 1.2 liter turbo petrol engine that we have seen on the Citroen C3 also, but obviously here with the bigger mass, it would be tuned differently. It'll have more power, about, from what I understand, it's not final, but about 130 PS and maybe 200 Newton meters or more. So it should be sufficiently powerful, although it won't be a stonker. So that's the engine here. And you have this insulation, and this is how you put it on a stay. So that's about the front. It doesn't have a sunroof. The ground clearance is very generous, 200 mm of ground clearance, and as you can see, you have 17-inch wheels, machine cut, and you have discs up front, but you have a drum at the rear. Now, some cost-cutting elements can be seen here also. The door handles are not very premium. As I mentioned, you don't have a sunroof, but this is a very functional car from what I can see. It'll have tons and tons of space, and for the segment, this will be the only car which will offer you 5 or 7 seat configurations. So from the side, let's have a quick look. Seems like there's a big greenhouse area, two-tone sunroof, roof rails, and I really like the way they have designed this thick C-pillar. It really gives it a very solid, very SUV stance. The haunches are very strong, and the tires are also very generously appointed 215 section tires, shark fin antenna, and at the rear is where I really like it. I love the way this rear lighting has been set up. Although this is not LED, you have rear wash and wipe, you have this high stop lamp, there's the camera, and let's see how it opens. You have rear parking sensors, of course. This design element is interesting. This is the PureTech engine name, C3 Aircross, and as you can see, this is the 7-seat version. So when you go with the 5-seat version, the maximum boot space that you'll have will be 511 liters, which is very generous, and you can fold down the 7-seater also. So you have enough and more space for a big holiday with family, so that's not a problem at all. So very practically designed car, very well thought out. Now, 2 USB sockets here, a cup holder here, another cup holder here. So if you're sitting in the back seat, there is ample headroom also. In fact, this car has one of the tallest cabins and has the most amount of headroom within its class as well. So space is one of the high points of this car. Now, the features may not be as much as, say, a Creta or say the Seltos, but as I mentioned, The knee and leg room is sufficient. The headroom, I'll show you. Sufficient. Roof mounted AC vents. These are the controls. And this is how you get into the third row. Now you can see there is this guy who's sitting here. You can have a look at how much space he has. Now this is not too much space, but understand one thing, this is not a very large car. So in that sense, I really believe that the space that you have here is good enough for like short journeys, for kids and for emergencies. So it's good to have an option for a 7-seater rather than not having that option at all. So in that sense, it's good value because it's not compromising your space. Also, you can outfit it in a 5 or a 7-seat version. So that's great flexibility. As you can see here, the middle row can be split in 30-70 fashion, which is again unique. Look here, and you have space for a big water bottle. And as you can see, the plastics and everything are not very high quality, but the touch points are soft. Now let me just show you how to get in the third row as well. So it's easy to get in. Just pull this strap from this position and the seat will tumble down. And as I mentioned before, there is decent space. It's not bad at all for such a small car. The headroom also, as I mentioned, is not bad. It's not generous, but for a car which is not too big, this is not bad. You have these two cup holders and it is a space which is usable. Now, for the second row, the one problem that I have is that the seat squab doesn't have too much thigh support. The front seats are scooped out, so the knee room and the leg room is not a problem. There is space under the front seat to move your legs around. There is no armrest. The central headrest is not adjustable. You have the slide though. So the amenities are not very generous, but it's sufficient. And you also have these two USB sockets. You don't have a Type-C socket, but you have a socket and you also have this little cup holder. These buttons in fact are for the rear windows. These are not for the front. And obviously they are not one touch up and down. So good headroom, good leg room, but the seat squab is not very generous. Now the ORVMs have these trafficators. You also have protection for the bumps. At the lower part also you have this protective plastic shield. And as I mentioned, this looks very nice. Now up front, as you can see, you have generous space for a big water bottle. You have the buttons for the windows, the two buttons here. And all of this is hard plastic, but this is soft to touch. The steering is familiar. We have seen this on the Citroen C3 also. And you have this auto start stop button off and the Windows lock button here, electric controls for the mirror. The AC vents are also something that we have seen before on the C3. The AC is not automatic. And you have this digital instrument console here, which is reasonably informative. The 10-inch screen again is something that we have seen before. Day-night mirror is manual. And you don't have a vanity mirror here, but you do have it here, although it's not available with illumination. Now the seats are finished in a very nice manner. It's fabric and leatherette, and this stitching here is quite unique. You have nice bolstering, so the seats up front are pretty good. The thigh support here is also better than what you get at the rear, so these seats are more comfortable, although you don't have a dead pedal here. You don't get a push button start, and you'll also probably not get an automatic here. You have a 6-speeder manual unit, but like we saw on the C3, you have a lot of space to store stuff here. You can store your cell phone, your wallet, whatever. You have a USB socket, a 12-volt power socket here, and this touchscreen also, as I mentioned, is something that we have seen before. You have this armrest only for the driver, and the handbrake is also a manual unit with some space to spare here. So good in terms of practicality. I'm not very fond of the color that has been chosen for this dashboard. This layout is similar to what we have seen on the C3. I like the color scheme there. This golden color is not exactly to my taste, but Overall, it seems like it's very practically done, and the components which have been shared between the C3 and this car are very, very evident. Overall, good visibility. Seems like it's a very sturdily built car. The exact specs of the car are not out yet. More details will be out in some time. Right now, this is just a preview, and the deliveries and the launch will happen in the second half. So expect this to launch during the festive season. Now, it will also come with all the warranties and the roadside support that you have generally been getting with the Citroen cars, and you get some really nice features. The price of this car will be somewhere between the high end of the sub 4 meter SUVs and the longer SUVs, which are 4.3 meters plus. So it will slot slam bang between the cars which are in the excise duty cut segment and the bigger cars. So I personally believe that the starting price for this car should be around 12 to 13 lakh rupees and should go up to 15 lakh rupees. And it would be a very spacious, very practical car for people who are looking for a spacious option but don't want to spend as much as the Hyundai and the Kia cars are asking for. I hope that I was able to cover all the basic points in this walk around. If you still have any questions, put them down in the comment section. Since there are too many people here, it's a little difficult for me to get to the details. But I hope that I was able to answer most of your questions. Until next time then, this is Amit Changhani signing off. Rev hard, rev free, and drive safe.